can't feel my face. Coffee spilling all over the place. Forgot the sticks, we're turning around. Another weekend in some hockey town. With a pucked up parents, frozen toes, big hearts, bad luck. With a pucked up parents, one more tourney, one more puck. We're broke, we're loud, we love this grind. Cause our kid just scored and we lost our minds.
Greetings and welcome to Pucked Up Parents. We are at episode 14. I don't have a joke for 14, so we'll just slide right into this. I am Michael. I'm your host for Pucked Up Parents. Joining me, as always, is my lovely wife and a parent of a senior in high school. That makes you feel old. I don't know how you deal with having a senior in high school because I certainly don't know how to do it. Angela, how you doing?
Hi, everyone. I'm good. Welcome to the Pucked Up Parents. As Michael mentioned, we do have a senior in high school who has been playing hockey for the last 12 years. When he started playing, we knew absolutely nothing about the sport. So we started this podcast to share our trial by fire education in all things youth hockey.
And we also have a 11-year-old who plays, and we're from Kentucky. Again, we have no background in hockey. Angela was an athlete at Auburn, played softball, gymnast. I myself am uncoordinated, tall, and gangly. So I went and became a firefighter because I sucked at all sports. But anyway, we're here to inform you, youth hockey parents, on the ins and outs of youth hockey as much as we know. And hopefully you learned something. And actually, I learned something through this through Angela's research. So let's get into the show. Let's talk about what happened last weekend. We came out of a hockey weekend. I'm trying to remember what the you were with the older kid. Did he play? Did he play?
Yeah, he played. We were down in Lexington for the weekend. Not too much exciting going on there, just standard game weekend. But you were with the younger one in Pittsburgh.
Right, but the older one also had his last home game of the season as well,
Yes.
the next day or the prior day, and he did really well. It was a not very competitive game, but they did end up winning, so they did close out the season undefeated. Or not losing a game in league play. They did tie one, so I can't say they won every one of them. And yes, I was in Pittsburgh. We went up on Saturday. I honestly, I love Pittsburgh. Very underrated city. The 11-year-old and I always make a trip to Permanis downtown to get a sandwich with fries and coleslaw on it. It's delicious. I highly recommend if you're in Pittsburgh for hockey, go to Permantes. I'll also tell you a story, Angela. I've kinda kept this in a wraps. I've, learned my lesson on hotel room coffee. I saw a hack on TikTok of a girl who was like, "Hey, have you ever been to a hotel and forget your underwear?" So to clean her one pair of underwear, she was jamming it into the Keurig or the little square machine to run the hot water through it and then blow drying it. So I'm sure they don't clean it. I don't wanna drink anybody's nasty chonies, so I have sworn off the in-room hotel room coffee, which I've touted in earlier episodes.
I'm so glad you finally decided that those coffee makers are disgusting. Unfortunately, it took a really gross TikTok story to get you to that point.
Somebody's cleaning their underwear in them, like, using it as a washing machine. It's disgusting. Not putting it in the cup. They're putting it where the little pod goes and letting the water go through it. So
The
you get,
hot
like,
water go through it. Yeah,
yeah, you
that's disgusting.
soupy ass coffee, their underwear. So yes, no more coffee. I'll go downstairs and get it out of the lobby like a normal person.
Okay, very good. I'm glad to hear that. Well, I do want to mention the next thing that happened over the weekend with hockey was all of our Olympic hockey. The US women's team and men's team both won gold against Canada. I do find it funny, and I've seen this a couple of times on some reels and whatnot, that just true to youth hockey, we flew 4,000 miles to play our neighbor.
Yeah, that's true, and I will point out that, again, I keep saying this, hockey doesn't give a damn about your schedule, and in the instance of this, I was sitting in a rink in Pittsburgh. It was at the end of the 2nd period when the men scored that winning goal. Everybody started cheering, the kids were dancing on the ice. We had watched it in the lobby prior to the game, but, of course, we had to go out to watch our kids play 'cause everybody was playing, but everybody had their phones out watching the game. I was paying attention to Henry's game, I wasn't watching on my phone. And then everybody started cheering. But yeah, hockey doesn't give a damn about hockey. So we had a game in the middle of the gold medal game. And I'll say
Mm-mm.
this, it's gonna make hockey playing amongst youth huge. This always drives up kids coming to tryouts. March 7th is USA Hockey's Play Hockey for Free. So I imagine this is going to skyrocket that through the roof.
Yeah, I totally agree. You mentioned before I did gymnastics. I also coached for a number of years. So back in the day, showing my age again, the 96 Olympics and the whole Carrie Shrug, Shannon Miller dream team gymnast drove all of our enrollments at the gym that I was working at that time. So yeah, 100%. I think the same thing is going to happen on the hockey side.
When that big mustache dude carried her off the floor when she had a hurt ankle with Carrie Strug.
Yes. She injured her ankle, and that was Bella Caroli, who was a longtime Olympic coach.
Alright, but yes, you're gonna see if you are a parent, if you're especially if you're a new parent, or if you see any, like, instructional programs, or especially this March 7th, USA Hockey Try Hockey for Free, it's gonna be huge because of the interest coming out of these Olympic Games.
I think the other thing that I've seen a lot of it, this is really gonna drive the girls' side of the sport, and I've said before, we need to do an entire episode on women's hockey and girls' hockey. Since we have 2 boys, I do wanna grab a guest for that, so we're gonna have to work on that and, really talk through some of the girls' hockey as well.
Well, let's recap last week's episode real quick. We are and again, it's still blowing up this week. We are among tryout season. It's tryout season. It's starting in 2 months, you'd say?
Usually tryouts are the end of March, early April for the older age groups because they have to be after USA Nationals, which is in, what, mid to late March.
I've seen a bunch of online on the parent forums of people asking, "Can I try out for multiple rinks? Can I try out for multiple teams? What do I do? This one's at the same time." So we covered all that last week in last week's episode. Angela and I are lucky enough this year, we just have 1 tryout because our, college age kid is off to college, although he is going to a couple prospect camps. So let's get into today's show, and it's a good leap off from the Olympics. Explain.
Today, I wanted to go through how some of those athletes got to the Olympic team. There's a lot of talk about where these players are from. Obviously, on both the men's and women's side, most of those players are playing professionally. But how did they get to that point? How do you flow through youth hockey? And so that's what I wanted to talk about today in some of the USA Hockey development camps and things along those lines.
Clarify this for me. What we're going to talk about today is almost life beyond youth hockey. So you're finished with high school or you're closing out of high school and it's where do you transition from there. But on the other hand, it's more of the elite programs for super skilled kids. Is that kind of what we're going to cover?
It is, but we're gonna start more on the high school side of things because, kind of what I wanna talk about first is the USA Hockey and how it's divided into regional districts, and that's where those junior national teams, so the teenage national teams, so your 18U for the boys side of things and the 19U for the girls side of things, where some of those players are identified. So really from 14 on up is where I wanna start today.
Okay, so what the puck am I doing? So as we go through this, we're going to talk first about USA Hockey. Can you clarify as you discuss? Is this just for boys or men, or is this? Are you going to talk about girls here too?
We're gonna talk about both. Obviously, we have more experience on the boys' side of things, but I do wanna mention the girls' side of things as well. Nationally, USA Hockey is divided into different regions or districts. For example, we're in the Mid-Am region or the Mid-American region, which is Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio, Western Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. That's our Mid-Am region. There are other regions, so you've got like New England, the Southeastern region, Northern Plains, Rocky Mountain. And then some of those big hockey states like Michigan, Minnesota, Massachusetts, New York, they are their own region. Each of those regions host a player development camp or player development tryout, which is really that very beginning of starting to identify players for national teams.
These different regional districts, the governing body over all that is USA Hockey, and USA Hockey, I would assume, created these districts based on, I guess, how many kids are playing, et cetera. But it's all governed by USA Hockey.
Right. So it's an umbrella under USA Hockey. And then, for example, again, our region is Mid-Am. So there's also like a board of directors and different positions for the Mid-Am, which oversees all of the youth hockey in the states that I mentioned. Mid-Am, Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio, Western Pennsylvania, and West Virginia is our region. There is kind of that subgroup of USA Hockey that has administrative, I guess, rights, for lack of a better term, over youth hockey in those states.
All right, so my kid's on a team right now. He's playing, and I wanna look into this. Is this I think if I'm not mistaken, you have to be nominated to even get to the development camp. Is that true?
Right, that is true. These development camps are done by those regions, and they're for both boys and girls, and they go by birth year. And it's ages 14 to 17 can be nominated to attend one of these camps. And so those nominations are done by coaches in your region, whether it's your child's coach or maybe a coach from another team can nominate players for this development camp. And what happens is that district or that region, so for us, Mid-Am will review all of the nominations and then send out invites to a camp that is held usually in late April, early May, that's inside your district, where they're going to do kind of a tryout or an evaluation of those players who received that invite. It's not like just anybody can go to this.
If your child is nominated, is that you have a spot at this development camp? This is not a they send the name off and then USA Hockey looks at the stats and determines if they're worthy of the camp.
You're no, it is you're nominated and your region decides if they're worthy of the camp.
Okay, so you get
So,
nominated and
yeah,
not make it to the camp.
and not make it to the camp because they do look at statistics and other qualifications to before the invite because they can't just invite everybody that was nominated because obviously there are limits on how many players they can have at a camp.
Well, and it goes back to what we talked about, on a prior episode of the coach's kid or the favorite kid who absolutely sucks, but he gets the nomination, so he's up at, like, playing up there. So there is a gatekeeper outside of your
Yes.
organization that determines if you make it camp. Now,
Yes,
right
absolutely.
and my god, this shows how pathetic of a hockey parent I am. Our son got nominated for the Mid-Am camp, and he
Yes.
made it, right?
Yes, he's been to the Mid-Am camp.
Where was that Mid-Am camp held at? Not that anybody listening cares where it was at. Was it Michigan or
So, no, for us, it was in Toledo. I don't know if
amateur,
it's
fair
still being held in Toledo, but yes, we went to Toledo for the Mid-Am, tryout camp.
Okay, so he goes to the tryout camp. I'm assuming it's over a weekend thing, uh,
Yes.
and they're getting evaluated, and I would assume scored. Now, you and I talked about this before the show. He got scored, and I think the scoring was like he was the only one that got scored out of his friend group, and I think you said something about like it was so super low that it wasn't even worth it. I mean, I don't say it wasn't worth it, but just tell the story.
Okay, so it shows the, vast range and skill level of the kids. They go to the camp, there's, evaluators from all over the district that are scoring the kids based on their skill level, what they're doing in the scrimmages, and so our son scored 1 point at the at this camp, whereas there were kids that didn't score any points at all, but then the high level players that would go on to the next round were scoring 60, 70, or more points. That just shows you the vast array of skills at one of these camps.
Any of the point determination based on how if your parents can afford this, so they took a look your pay stub and said, the Mausers are pretty damn poor. They get 0 points for that." Or whereas,
Yeah,
Johnny's
I don't I don't think that income level was assessed in this process. I think
"Oh,
it was
man,
really just the skill level.
this kid's from the Bauer Foundation, so his parents are on the hockey organization. Get him in, get him in." Alright, so
Yeah. So, anyways, the point being is this is a very selective process. You have to be nominated by somebody to even get an invitation. If you're nominated, you may or may not get an invitation. And then once you get the invitation, depending on what your score is at that particular camp, will determine whether you move on to the next kind of round, so to speak.
okay, so that's the 3rd round. So, alright, I got nominated, I'm in. I'm at the camp, I made it. I'm one of these high scoring point kids. Then what?
Then there's some additional national development camps where the numbers shrink even more. From what I've read, it's somewhere around 200 kids total that are invited to this national development camp. The individual age group, it may only be like 40 kids in the age group that get invited to that kind of next round.
Now, as I'm progressing through these levels as a parent, and am I paying for each thing? I mean, am I are they nickel and dime
Yes.
here? I'm paying for the
Oh,
first
yeah.
okay. Clearly, yes,
Yeah.
hockey must be paid. So, yes,
Right.
but I guess if my kid's at elite, I would be probably encouraging to do this because he's actually making it through a good process. It's probably gonna expose him to a lot of coaches.
Right, and I think that's the thing, and it's from what I remember when we went to that mid-am camp, you paid whatever the registration fee was for it. Obviously, we had to travel for that, so it is an expensive, undertaking, but if your kid is being invited and kind of continued on to the next round, I think it depending on what your situation is, it may be worth it. I know for us, the way I looked at it, it was an honor to be invited, and to at least go and be on the ice with that group of highly skilled kids from around our region. We had no anticipation that he was going to go on to the next round. It was just, hey, this is an opportunity to be on the ice with some really high skill leveled players.
As he was out there, could you see the skill difference between our child who scored a 1 versus the kids that were 60? Was it like, I don't know, like a high school baseball player taking pitches off, Shohei Ohtani? Was it that much of a
I
difference?
mean, yeah, there's definitely a spectrum of skill level, and I do remember watching some of the scrimmages, and you could definitely tell that some of these kids were really elite players. And not that our son is not a great hockey player. He's a good hockey player, but there's definitely the exceptionalism that comes with this kind of camp that you're going to see players. You might think your kid's the best player in the world, but you're going to see players that
So,
are way better.
people like us I'm humbling honored to be there, but humbling at the same time.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's a good way to put it.
Okay, so now they're at the 3rd level. At what point do they actually play any competitive hockey? Is there like a league that kicks in? Are they playing? I see you have a note here that says the NTDP national team
Yeah.
has 2.
Well, right. So this is where things divide, where I've found things really divide between the boys and the girls program. The boys program has a national development team program, which is essentially a juniors team that's hosted by USA Hockey. From what I understand, they have a U17 team for this hockey season is 2009 players and a U18 team, which is 2008 players.
They're like traveling to Europe and playing like in these.
Yes,
Was
they're
it
the ones
big?
like the world juniors programs and those kinds of things. That's the team that's playing with them. So this is a year-round team. I was not able to find if that's the same if there's a kind of a comparable thing for the women's program or the girls program. However, I did find that they do, and I mentioned this in a previous episode when we talked about levels. They have a U19 team. So it does go a little bit further, and I'm going to get into what I assume is the reason why on that in a few minutes. But yes, that's where USA Hockey finds these elite level players to start playing in these World Juniors programs, which will lead into other things like college and
At that point, you gotta be having there's scouts looking at you, whether it be college or even
oh
NA.
yeah, right. And don't forget we have the Women's Professional Hockey League now too,
Correct.
or the PWH. It's PWHL, so Professional Women's Hockey League. Yeah.
And so
Um,
what's next? I saw a thing about junior is this juniors? Do you have juniors written down here? Is that like the junior teams like we have here in Cincinnati? We have 1 junior team?
so it's similar. So I want to get into to the junior stuff next. So this National Development Program team does play in a juniors league, but they also play international.
But that team, those that's the best of the best of the best. These kids.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct. Yeah. And like I said, that's where you're going to be pulling, and that's where eventually those Olympic players are where they started.
right, okay,
So they could eventually end up in that Olympic level programming.
right. So well, never mind. I was gonna say in a pre-NHL Olympic playing world, is that where they pulled players from for the Olympics? But I would assume they probably dipped into college for that.
Yes. And you also have to remember that certain Olympics allowed professional players and certain years of the Olympics did not allow professional
Yeah.
players. There's some definite differences there too. And I do want to note that we'll have to do this on another episode because I didn't dive down this rabbit hole, but USA Hockey is going to start what's called a development league in the 2027 to 2028 season, which will create an additional level with player development to try to strengthen the player pool for junior and college hockey.
Are they starting to
That's something. really new, and I don't know a ton about it yet, and it sounds like there's some questions on why that's being done and maybe some controversy there too, so I need to get some more information on that.
Do you think it has to be anything to do with Canada now being like an open pool for colleges? In other words, like a lot of whatever they opened up for Canada allowed a lot of the kids up there to come down here and play college hockey, which took a bunch of roster spots from America. I'm not going to get political. I don't care, but
Right. So
eh,
I think that has a
but
lot to do with it. And I think secondarily, they're trying to do away with what we like to call the pay to play situations
God,
where you get, or not do away with, but reduce the amount of pay to play. So you've got these teams and these organizations and leagues that want to advertise that they're playing at a certain level. We mentioned this, I think, last week, the AAA level. And really, the skill level is not to a AAA level, but you've paid for that extra A, or
right.
you've paid for the division that you're in. And I think that's one of the main reasons they're trying to develop this league to really do a better job of controlling what skill level is in a particular league.
All right, so let's talk about, are we there yet? So we're getting there. Are we there yet? Our son is 17. So let's talk about, and we've not had a kid on it. Our kid didn't do this, junior hockey. What do you got?
Yeah, so one thing I wanna mention, because I've been trying to include the ladies in this as well, and again, we need to do a full episode on girls hockey, but from what I've found, there are no junior hockey leagues for girls, but I think that's why they have the U19 age group in the youth, because it gives them an extra year of playing, in development before they go off to college. For example, someone who is a senior in high school, and then maybe they take a gap year to play another year at U19 before they go off to college, and really chase that hockey. So I just wanted to point that out. But on the boys' side, there are all of these.
I'd like to
What?
clarify the men, they're men by this age.
Okay.
19, 18 and 19. They can go to a strip club, get tattoos.
Okay, boys, men, whatever, your players, which are typically in that 16 to 21 age group. I think most juniors players are in that 18 to 19 age group. And from what I understand, the idea behind the juniors programs was to kind of mirror what's done in Canada. And I'm not going to get too deep in on that because I really don't know a whole lot about the juniors program in Canada. But in the US, the juniors program is supposed to add some additional years of skill development and maturity, and also provide some exposure and recruiting to play either NCAA or higher level juniors programs.
When I learned about the juniors hockey, it threw everything that I believed out the window. I thought you went, again, we talked about the levels of hockey, and then you got to your high school years, whether you were playing for a high school, junior varsity, and varsity, or like a U18 team. So I thought that was it. And then you made that leap if you were going to play in college or not. But our son, who is 17, went to the what was it? The thing up in Michigan, the
The
show
prospect camp.
prospect.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot more about juniors, and where these kids were playing upwards of 2 to 3 years post high school to try to get into a college program, and that just, as a person who has more focused on education throughout my life as opposed to sports, it blows my mind to delay college to go play hockey for 3 years to chase a dream. I get it, if that's what your kid wants to do or your adult son wants to do, that's fine, but for me, it's get to college as soon as you graduate. Can you play juniors? I guess you can play juniors while you're simultaneously enrolled in college, right?
I think a lot of juniors players are taking college classes as they're playing juniors, but they're not gonna cross over and play juniors and a college team at the same time. It's one or the other. I think this is, at least from my understanding and at least my background, although it's been well more than 20 years since I was in college, it's very different with hockey than it is most sports. Because you think of a football player, they're going to play high school football and they're typically getting recruited out of their high school, which is very different from hockey. Then you think of it from like a soccer perspective where a kid plays high school soccer on the varsity team, but they're also playing club soccer. They could be recruited out of one or the other. Whereas hockey is very different, and they're recruiting mainly out of these youth programs, the U18 programs, U19 for the ladies, and these juniors programs.
It just seems like a purgatory between high school and college to me, and that's just me in my head. Like,
Right. It's
when
very unique, and I didn't know anything about any of this until we started down this path a couple of years ago of our son, still really wanting to play hockey. and starting to figure out how this all works, especially with older siblings and stuff. We've seen how other families have dealt with these questions and how to proceed.
And to be clear to the listeners, our 17-year-old he plays varsity hockey, he was recruited by our local Cincinnati juniors team. We turned it down, maybe for money, maybe just because we were having too much fun with the varsity team. So we kept conversations open, but we never pulled the trigger. They've even asked him to play in the playoffs. So what are the tiers? I know there's tiers of juniors. What are they and where would our local team fall?
So that's one of the things that I want to talk about within the tiers. So the tier one, and we talked about this again in the earlier episode on youth levels, tier one, two, and three. So the way that kind of coordinates with the youth league is the A, double A, triple A. So tier one would be like a triple A program. And the USHL, the United States Hockey League, this is the same league that national team plays in. This is the highest level junior hockey that you can play in the US. And from what I'm reading, 95% of the players in that league are gonna go play NCAA Division One.
Basically, this is your farm team, your minor league for NCAA Division One teams.
Yeah, this is the highest that you're gonna get, and I would think that the vast majority of players in this league are being highly recruited by those teams, and not only by those teams, but by the, NCAA Division One teams.
Okay, so that's tier 1. Tier 2 is the North American Hockey League. Tell us about is that just
Yes. It's called the Null, I think is how it's referred to a lot. It's NAHL. And so this is obviously kind of the second level of that. It would be similar to like a double A team. There's a high percentage of the players in this league that will find placement on an NCAA Division 1 or Division 3 team. Note that there is no NCAA Division 2 hockey. I don't have any reason or knowledge of
like a
why. I just know there's D1 and D3 NCAA.
it's like a office high-rise building. There's, like, floor 11, floor 12,
12 and then 14.
floor
Yeah,
13th floor.
I don't know.
So, you people on the 14th floor, you know which floor you're really on. You're on the 13th floor. Just like Division 3, you're really Division 2.
Yeah, so I don't know the reasoning behind that. I know that's the case as we've been researching colleges and kind of next steps over the last couple of years. Beyond the tier 2, there's also tier 3,
Is
which
this
is
where
the 3.
is tier 3 where our local team is?
Yeah, so and I wanna dive into that a little bit more into some more details. So tier 3 is, 3HL is the North American 3 Hockey League, so that's kind of the single A league. That's the league that is, I guess, sponsored by, it might not be the right word, but touted by the USA Hockey. But there are some other tier 3 leagues, which include the USPHL, which is what our local juniors team is. So, in addition to USPHL, there's things like the Eastern Hockey League and the National Collegiate Development Conference. These are all just other hockey leagues that have been created for that kind of gap year player that is looking to continue to improve before potentially going off to play college hockey.
Now, when we talk all these tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, the teams that are built around them, because I know our tier 3 team it's actually a part of the Cyclones organization. Cyclones are ECHL team. Are the tier 1 and tier 2 teams and the 3 for that, are they also built the same way as like our youth teams in that they may be affiliated with a minor league team or NHL team, or they may be independent of it? Is it all over the place like we are with youth hockey?
Honestly, I don't really know. I have not studied up on those tier 1 and tier 2 teams very much just because I knew that was out of the realm of what we were looking at for our kids. The reason I know more about the tier 3 stuff is because that's where I've had more contact with some other, not only our local team, but some other teams in our region typically play in that USPHL league, which is one of those lower level leagues. And one of the things that I think you and I think we have an issue with those leagues is that the placement on an NCAA team is significantly less playing on one of those teams. You're not getting that exposure to those NCAA Division One teams. The chance of you kind of making that stepping stone into one of those NCAA teams or a higher level tier 2 or tier 1 league is probably significantly less. Then you have to think about, is that a good investment in your, not only monetarily, but time wise? Is that a good investment for your child? Is that a good investment for your family?
Well, and when you say
Um,
you're talking about a kid who's coming into adulthood who really needs to start thinking about their future, career, getting out from under mom and dad's wings and living on their own. How much are you gonna help them along? Clearly, they're your child, you're gonna help them, but at that point, you gotta be more realistic about their future in life.
Right. Are they at that point, you're looking at it, they're not gonna be a professional hockey player. Whether they get an NCAA scholarship or not is gonna be minimal, and then you have the ACHA, which is the club hockey, which is also very competitive, but there's no scholarships for club hockey. Like, what's the end game, I think, is what you have to think about there, and frankly, I think a lot of these tier 3 leagues that are popping up are really just oversaturated, and there's a lot of people playing in these leagues that, it's fun, yeah, it's competitive hockey, yeah, but what's the end game, I think is what you have to keep in mind.
Just to be clear, ACHA Division One, that's what our son's looking at. He has been recruited by colleges, and a college actually offered him a spot on the team. We were told that was kind of I don't wanna say it was unheard of, but it was out of the realm of normalcy that he didn't play juniors and an ACH Division One team was offering him a spot. That's probably where he'll land, and we're fine with that. Now, when we talk about juniors as a parent, how much do I make checkout for? Am I gonna have to sell a kidney? Am I gonna have to sell
Well,
listen,
let me make
no, no,
I wanna make another point here about before we get into cost, I wanna make another point about, the women's side of things. From what I understand, there's no juniors league for women. It's kind of that U19 to college. This kind of, part of hockey that we're talking about is really unique to, the guys' side of things, and guess what? To your question, it's expensive. League fees, from what I could find, doing some internet research, is gonna be somewhere between $5 and $13,000. Plus, you're going to be paying, billeting, and we're gonna talk a little bit about billeting and what that is here in a minute. But basically, housing fees, travel, equipment, food. You're gonna be paying for school on top of that, whether your child is doing some sort of online high school or community college or enrolling in a local college.
which in comparison, because we've talked to college coaches already about ACHA Division One, the bottom drops out on fees for that. I mean, it's like $2 to $3,000, and that covers everything, which is amazing. So this, I guess, this stepping stone, if it does get you into a college, even if you don't play NCAA, that future ACHA Division One, Division Two, Division Three program is going to be a lot less expensive. So maybe in the long run, the investment is worth it, but it is a ton of money. Now, billeting. I love the word building. I don't know where the hell it came from. If you know the origin of it, please tell me. Building. What does that mean? For
I don't know the origin of the word, but billeting is essentially where a player goes and lives with a local family who provides them essentially room and board while they're playing for their local hockey team, whether that's a first team or that's youth AAA team, something along those lines. We've seen that happen at that level too.
so like a college, like a exchange student. I might be from Kentucky, but I'm flying up to New Jersey, or I'm sending my kid up to New Jersey at age 17 to live with some strange family and play hockey.
Correct. That's exactly what it is.
Are they? So we're talking high school age kids here, even up to 21. But let's focus on the high school kids. When these high school kids, because we know some kids that have billeted. Are
Yes.
are they enrolling in a high school up there? Are you being homeschooled? Like, what's the school situation?
Most of the kids that are doing that are doing some sort of online school.
So they're not even that's again, that goes back to my unaware sports dad here. You're depriving the kid of high school life, and no disrespect to homeschool parents at all, but for me, the high school life, the proms, the football games, the basketball games, the social aspect of it all, taking that away is just odd to me, and again, no disrespect to homeschool kids. I know they live in a different world, and there's like a partnership with other homeschool kids, but sending my kid to, like, New Jersey to play hockey, and I'm sure they're bonding with the team, which is fine, but to do online classes, it seems to be depriving them of social interaction.
That's a family decision and a decision that you have to make with your family and your kid, whether you wanna do something like that. It's definitely a different world than most youth sports. But
Uh,
and I before we move on with that though, I wanna say that billeting is not necessary, and it's not you don't have to do that because you can be successful and gain all of the things that we've talked about that our kids have gotten out of hockey without doing that. They can, still play competitive hockey, they can still do all of the things in high school. They can still improve their skills, get those leadership skills, all of the things that we've talked about over and over without billeting. So don't think this is something you have to do. This is depending on the skill level of the kid and depending on what their potential is. I think that's a decision you have to make as a family.
Maybe not at NCAA level, but at ACHA level, and we're proof of it. Kids, you can get your kids can get a look from college coaches, and that's happening for us. We have college coaches that actually are aware of our child and are interested in having them on the team. So let's talk about marketing on these junior teams. I see you have a note here about marketing. Is this just for the junior teams or just everything that we've talked about in general?
I think everything with all things hockey, you're going to get on somebody's mailing list. You're going to start getting emails about try out for this juniors team, try out for this program, attend this camp. You're going to get all of those things in your email box.
And it's not just email. I see it a lot on social media.
Yeah, yeah.
Come to Rhode Island and try out. Come to Washington State and try out. We are looking for U18 kids here in Nebraska. It's all over the place. So, what's your advice on yes, that's good, or might be a little questionable?
I think you have to be really careful with that kind of stuff, especially with these junior teams that are putting out there, hey, come to our prospect camp, pay us, $500 to play for the weekend and travel to, Iowa or whatever, because the vast majority of those teams already have their squad set. They might be looking for one or two players.
Or they're looking for funding, so they're like, let's just like
Right.
see some parents with the camp and say, "Pay us $500 and they might make the national team." Remember, Angela and I went both with the high school in the '90s. I think it still exists. Remember Who's Who among high school students?
Right. Yeah.
All this money, and Michael Mauser is in Who's Who.
And yeah, you'll get your name in the guidebook or whatever. It's the same kind of thing. And yeah, you might get a little bit of exposure by going to these camps, but you've got to be really careful about what you're going to go to. And my suggestion is, and what I think we've done, is talk to other coaches and other people in the know in the hockey world to find out what's legit and what's probably just a moneymaker.
All right. Now let's talk reflections. Life moves pretty fast, and I gotta say this one it hits home because we are. I don't want to say we're in the scenario because our kid is not. Sam, our 17-year-old, is not elite enough to get this, but it is very subjective right now because of what's going on with the Olympics. So, what do you got for reflections?
I think we've just had a lot of dumb luck in all of this, and that we've had a great hockey family to help us navigate through this crazy landscape. And I'm always the one to dive in and end up in a rabbit hole to find out more about whatever the situation may be. But I think it can be difficult to keep perspective if there's a coach telling you that your kid's really talented, and you have to do that rabbit hole search. You have to dig in and figure out what makes the most sense. Is my kid really a prospect for this team or whatever? Because in the end, it's more about, how far you go, or, not necessarily about how far you go or how many letters next to your kid's name. Did your kid enjoy it? Have they been competitive? Are they having fun? And try not to overshoot your player's skill and leave them burned out.
I'll say that in a rink, I gotta think, and we've seen it just in Kentucky and in Cincinnati, Ohio rink. Chances are you probably have some coaches or parents that have played at one of these levels. I mean, we have parents in our leagues that have played all the way up to the NHL. So ask around. Did you play ACHA Division One? You played NCAA college. You played juniors. Talk to the parents and get their experience. I know some of them may be older, and I'm sure the experience has probably changed, but they can give you their honest opinion about a, what your kid's skill level's at, and B, what the experience and if it's even worth it, because again, all of this stuff costs money. It's a lot of money. So it's almost this whole hockey journey from the age of 7 to 21 is a choose your own adventure book. And you are almost on your own in choosing that adventure. And it's like you're a detective trying to investigate which path is the best for your child. And that to me is difficult. I don't know how I could have navigated without you, Angela, without Hockey for Dummies, and without other parents helping us along the way. And I still don't think I got it.
That's the whole point of this podcast, and the reason why I wanted to start this is because we came into this with absolutely no knowledge. And I feel like we've done a pretty good job navigating through not only with our dumb luck, but with me diving into things on my own, talking to other players, coaches, other families. We've really been able to navigate through this, and I feel like we have a good perspective of all of the different avenues, and the avenue that we took worked for us, and we'll continue to evaluate that as our younger child gets older, and we'll figure out the best path for him too. But I think you need to be aware of all of the different options and all of the different pitfalls before you dive into that and into anything really.
So, with that said, if you have any questions about any of this, I know we it was a lot of information dumped out here. Hit us up on Instagram, on Facebook, email, contact us, ask your questions. If we don't know the answer, we'll certainly seek it out for you. Or if you've had experience in this and we said something wrong, or there's something we should know, we can do a follow up episode or even just follow up update with correct information. So just let us know. With that said, Angela, what's your tip of the week on all of this?
The tip of the week is there's a team for everyone. But be realistic with your expectations and know that, again, it doesn't matter what tier or how many A's you have beyond that team name, that it doesn't matter what level you play in youth hockey, that anything can happen. And what level you play at 8U has no bearing on what level you're going to play at 14U or 16U or even in college. One of the big stories that's come out of the Olympics is the Team USA's goalie on the men's side never played above double A in youth hockey and was able to manage his way through some of the junior stuff and onto a NCAA team and ended up playing in the NHL and on the Olympic team.
So
Obviously,
I agree.
that's
It's super rare occurrence. It's super rare occurrence,
yes.
but it's possible. Anything's possible.
Anything's possible, but be realistic with what your expectations are because, frankly, such a small fraction of youth hockey players will end up even at those early level USA hockey camps that we talked about earlier in the episode. They're going to host maybe 1,000 kids from age 15 to 17 every year for one of those camps. And there are what do we say, like 500,000 kids playing youth hockey these days? That's a tiny percentage. And then continue on, let's look at the Olympic teams. Both the men's and women's teams had mostly professional players on their teams. And guess what? Not all professional players made that Olympic team. So you've got professional hockey players that weren't good enough to make the Olympic team.
You're essentially, and we're kids of the '80s and '90s. We're essentially in the dream team phase of Olympic hockey right now, in that they're mining from the professional women's hockey league and colleges, rightfully so. Dream team did the same thing. They got Christian Laettner out of college. All the rest were NBL players. And they got NHL players to play for the men's league. And to Angela's point, there were guys left off the roster. There's remember Isaiah Thomas was left off the dream team roster because Michael Jordan didn't like him, but that's a different story. But there are NHL players who didn't make the Olympic rosters. Is it safe to say, yes, the NHL is the golden standard, but above that is the Olympic team? That's the best of the best of the best of an NHL playing. That's probably the best hockey you can play on the planet, I would assume.
Right. But I think that puts it into perspective what a small fraction of hockey players in the entire world are going to make it either to that NCAA level, professional level, and Olympic level. It's just so the chances are just so small that you have to be realistic with what you're doing, what level your child's playing at, and how hard they want to push and how hard you're going to push them.
Real quick, and I'm sorry to dive back into this. At those ages, when you're in the juniors at those ages, you think your kid is settled on one sport, or are they some multi-sport at that time?
I think if you're playing juniors, you're probably only playing hockey.
Okay, okay. I wish
That's my assumption. I can't say that for, any fact or anything, but I would assume at that point you are strictly playing hockey at the juniors level. I think there's plenty of high school students and probably double A players out there, maybe even some triple A players in that 18U category that might be playing a second or third sport, but it's going to become less and less. And I would also assume that if you're doing another sport, you might be doing some individual sport versus another team sport because I think it becomes really difficult to become a multi-team sport athlete.
All right. Well, that was a lot. And again, we just wanted to cover this because it was a hot topic coming out of the Olympics. And clearly, we aren't at this point. I don't think we're going to get to this point. I think our kid will go to ACHA Division One, two, or three after he gets out of high school. So this is probably untouchable stuff for us. With that
Yeah,
said,
and I do wanna throw out one more thing. I think we need to do an episode on ACHA and some more college stuff, but I wanted to hit this first, because that's kind of the order in which a lot of players, flow through these leagues.
take us to our outro.
Yeah, I appreciate everybody listening, and please follow, subscribe, and share. Leave us a comment or questions on whatever app you're listening on Facebook, Instagram. We're here for you. We wanna hear from you, and, we'll respond to you as well.
We have merchandise on Instagram. It's tagged on Instagram. It's also tagged on Facebook. I like to shout out small businesses. This isn't a small business, but this is somebody who helped us get our podcast off the ground with some advice. Our friend Rich Davis, Cavino and Rich, they're on Fox Sports, iHeartRadio, Fox Sports. They broadcast out of LA. They have a humorous take on sports. And Rich also hosts a show it's available on all podcast platforms called Have Kids They Say. It's rated R. Don't let the little kids in the room when you listen to it. But just a quick plug to our friends at Cavino and Rich and Have Kids They Say. Give them a listen, give them a follow, and tell them the Pucked Up Parents sent you. Thank you as always. We really appreciate it. We love the continued growth. Continue to share our show. We sent out some stickers. If you want any stickers, just shoot us a DM on our Facebook page. And with that said, keep your stick on the ice. We are all in this together. Thank you.
Up before dawn, can't feel my face. Coffee spilling all over the place. Forgot the sticks, we're turning around. Another weekend in some hockey